Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Tuesday, January 2nd, 2018, and you know what that means. It's time to get nerdy, y'all. Welcome to episode number 54 of Two Nerds in a Pod, the nerdiest gaming podcast in the galaxy. I'm Lam, also known as Mr. Nice Guy, and I got my comrade in gaming commentary here with me, the miggity Mac, also known as Maction. Mac, we have a lot to talk about. It's been a couple weeks. How was your holiday season? How are things, man?
Well, the holidays were great, Mr. Nice Guy. I had just a fantastic time. I think to start, I had a little bit of time off of work. I also had the opportunity to visit with friends that I was kind of not expecting. Like, for example, my parents have been abroad for the past 4 or 5 months, but they were able to make it back for Christmas, which was very cool.
Always fun.
And then I took a trip to Las Vegas and visited with some friends there, and I saw a movie that I've been wanting to watch for quite some time called The Disaster Artist.
Ooh. Maybe we should we save that? Actually, no, go ahead. Talk about it.
So, are you familiar, Mr. Nice Guy, with a movie called The Room?
I'm not, unfortunately.
It
sounds
is
like
considered
a horror movie.
It is not. It is a drama. However, it is a terrible movie, terrifyingly bad. People, the world around recognize The Room as being a terrible movie.
Like bad acting, or what's bad about it?
Bad everything. The writing is bad. The casting is bad. The
Shaky
acting
camera?
is bad. So among other things, the movie was shot in both digital as well as old school film, and it was shot in the early 2000s, but it was shot in both. But for the most part, you kind of need to have different lighting for the two different mediums.
Yep, absolutely.
So it's one of those things where it's like, everything that could go wrong would go wrong. But the person behind The Room, the writer, producer, director, star of The Room, happened to be someone who just had so much money that it got done. He even paid for it to be in a theater for 2 weeks so that it was eligible for an Academy, or for whatever the award is for movies. Is it Academy Award or Oscar?
Yep, Academy Award.
Something.
I believe. Yep.
Yeah. So whatever the award is, the Room was in theaters for 2 weeks. He paid for it so that it would be eligible.
And I'm guessing that he probably didn't win one?
You are correct.
Okay.
He did not, and I don't encourage you to watch The Room, but rather I encourage you to watch a YouTube review of The Room by the Nostalgia Critic, which is really quite good. But there's some setup. Anyway, not important. What is important is that it is terrible. And so there was a book made by the, I guess you would say, by the supporting actor in the whole Room fiasco, who happens to be a friend of the writer, director, producer, star. And the name of his book was called The Disaster Artist, and it was all about the making of this, how these two guys met, how things happened, how they got to where they were, and at the end of the day, at some point in time, James Franco read The Disaster Artist, and he said, "We've got to turn this into a movie."
No way.
So The Disaster Artist stars James Franco as Tommy Wiseau, and his brother, whose name escapes me, but his last name is obviously Franco, and his little brother, who plays the other guy, the supporting actor Greg Cicero, if I remember his name right. So, and it is them being these guys during the thing. Anyway, The Disaster Artist, I had to drive 200 plus miles in order to in order to view it, but it was worth it.
Dude, I'm
so
glad to
hung
hear
out
it.
with friends, and that was basically my weekend, my holiday. I know that it's been a little while. That's definitely on me because of timing issues and things like that, but I'm thrilled to be back. I'm so glad we're back in the swing of things.
Return to the Mac. We're back, y'all.
Return of the Mac once again.
Well, dude, my holidays were fantastic as well, man. My family came in from Seattle. My mom and my dad and my brother. So that was awesome. Mac, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're coming through just fine.
Somebody said that my mic isn't working in the chat, but I think it's just your computer, Posy160. No, it's all good. So I'll hold the mic closer. So my family came in. My kids, I have 4 kids, if you guys didn't know. Little nice guys and little nice girls. That is the joy of Christmas right there, man, is watching them come down and be excited to open presents. There's other joys. Don't if people don't have kids and things, don't take it offensively. But man, so what happened a couple weeks before Christmas, Mac? I had gotten some stuff for my kids that I was really excited for them to open. I had gotten them Splatoon 2, and I had gotten them ARMS for the Nintendo Switch. And I was super excited to watch them come downstairs on Christmas morning and open them. Well, Mac, I have 2 twin girls who are 2 years old. And they ripped those presents open a couple weeks before Christmas.
Oh.
And they took them to the boys, my older sons who are 6 and 4. And they went up to my wife and said, "Mom, what are these?" And she was like, "No! No!" So I get a text like they opened them. And so we had to tell them a little white lie and say those weren't the actual games. Those were the comic books of ARMS. And so long story short, Christmas morning, they're opening these presents, and they're the last presents because I was super excited for them to open them. And my son opens it, and it's Splatoon 2, the exact game he wanted, and he says, "Dad, is this the actual game, or is this the comic book?" So he was not nearly as excited as I thought he would be, but they've been loving playing them, so it all worked out. Mac, I'm glad you had a good holiday. I say we do what we do best. And we hop right into the gaming news, my friend.
Absolutely.
Guys, welcome to episode 54 of Two Nerds in a Pod, the nerdiest gaming podcast in the galaxy. We're 54% of the way to 100, and 2018 is going to be a great year. We have some awesome news stories, and a lot of them are rumors. But, we ain't scared of rumors. We'll talk about rumors on here. So here's our first one. Next Xbox console release window has been leaked, you guys. This is on Game Rant. It says, console manufacturers are constantly working on new systems, creating prototypes, and internally testing the next PlayStation or Xbox. Considering this, it's no surprise or secret that Microsoft has an Xbox One successor in the works in some form. But a new rumor suggests that the console may launch much sooner than expected. According to YouTuber Dreamcast Guy, the next Xbox console is currently slated for release in 2019. Dreamcast Guy reportedly has a console within Microsoft that leaked this, has a source within Microsoft that leaked this information to him. The article says, "We have reason to believe Dreamcast Guy's source exists, which gives his claims a little more legitimacy than they would otherwise. But it's entirely possible his source is giving him inaccurate information. So it's important to take this news with a massive grain of salt." It's totally feasible, you guys. Console generations. I'll hold the mic up to my mouth if that helps you guys in the chat. Console generations are typically about 5, 6 years. Sometimes they're 8 to 10. Mac, I know you're not a console guy, but I'm curious, as a PC gamer, what would it take for you to hop onto a console? To jump into to come join the party, Mac, to come join the console party. What would it take? Is it exclusivity of games?
Well, to come join the party, one, I would probably need a low buy-in price. So the console, I would need to be able to pick it up for something close to impulse buy territory, which is $150 to $200. Second, is I would probably need some good exclusives to convince me to go that route. So,
okay. And they would probably need to be co-op exclusives, right? Not the first-person shooters that consoles are so often known for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, fair enough. Now, I just for Christmas got an Xbox One S. I got a really good deal on one on Black Friday for myself. So I'm hoping that this rumor is not true. I'm hoping that the Xbox One S is going to have a much longer life cycle before they start making exclusives for their next console. Curious what you guys think in the chat. We all know that the Xbox One X just came out and cost $500. So I really don't see Microsoft releasing another console within a year of the release of the X. I think that incremental upgrades are the way of the industry at this stage, and I just don't see it happening. But if other people think otherwise, let us know your thoughts in the chat.
I will say on the subject of incremental upgrades that we really need to go back to the true renaissance of incremental upgrades, which would, of course, be the Sega Genesis and the 32X add-on for the Sega Genesis. And let's also not forget the Sega CD add-on for the Sega Genesis. That was true incremental upgrades in gaming. Just saying.
That's right. Now, we got some interesting comments in the chat. Someone says, Galvatron says, the next Xbox won't happen until 2021 at the latest. I think he meant to say at the earliest. So just to kind of edit his comment based on what I know he's trying to say, the next Xbox won't happen until 2021 at the earliest. I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't happen until 2022. Yeah, he corrected himself and said earliest in the chat. Yeah, I agree. I think that it's way too early. I think that they may push back Halo 6 and release it when the new console comes out. Additionally, in the chat, we got our man Pazzy. He says, I'm lucky enough to have a console and PC, but I keep at least one console out and active, more for friends than library of games. Elrin 1900 says, we're only about halfway through lifespan of the current console generation, so take at least 3 years for the next PlayStation and Xbox to appear. I hope that's true. Cool. Well, thanks for those thoughts, guys. Let's keep it moving. We got a lot of cool news stories. Let's talk about PUBG. This is on Game Informer. It says the CEO of PUBG Corporation, the Bluehole subsidiary that handles all things related to PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, has said that the company hopes to bring Battlegrounds to every platform. C.H. Kim, PUBG Corporation CEO, told InVen Global that the company is interested in bringing Battlegrounds to the PlayStation 4. The main problem, aside from the timed exclusivity, quote, for some time on the Xbox One, is that the PlayStation 4 has no early access / game preview program, which makes the company's release plans difficult. So for those of you who are not familiar, PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, fantastic game, recently released on the Xbox One, only because they have the game preview program, which allows companies to release games that are not complete with no required standards for quality. I have played Battlegrounds, Project PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds on the Xbox One X. It's a fantastic game. It's amazing, but it's very, very buggy, to the point that there's frustration sometimes with the amount of lag that I experience. So I think it's cool that it's going to come to every console, but I think I think that I like that it's exclusive right now because I bought Xbox specifically for that game and a couple others. Mac, just generally speaking, man, thoughts on exclusivity? You think it hurts or helps the industry?
I think it helps that particular console. Honestly, I'm not sure. I'm not a big fan of exclusivity. I jump for joy when games are released on multiple platforms, especially when those additional platforms are the platforms that I already have, aka PC, so that I get a chance to enjoy them. So I feel like exclusivity is, again, it's one part of the equation. The games is one thing, the buy-in cost is another for me when I'm considering a console. So I feel like for me, it's just ensuring, exclusivity is just ensuring that I wind up waiting or playing on somebody else's. It does nothing to convince me to get a console. So in that sense, I kind of feel like it's not really helping, but it's also not really harming.
See, and I specifically bought a PlayStation 4 first this generation because of games that I knew were going to be exclusive to the PlayStation 4. I knew that the new Infamous game was going to be exclusive to PlayStation 4. I knew that they'd come out with The Last of Us 2 eventually and that would be exclusive. And plenty of other games. Horizon Zero Dawn ended up coming out. And just PlayStation really won the last generation in terms of a library, in terms of exclusive library games. Xbox 360 sold much more. But to me, exclusivity, I'm not saying that it helps or hurts the industry, but I kind of like that it exists. It makes me, I don't know, I just like it. I'll just leave it at that. We got a lot of other news we got to cover, so I won't delve too deep into that. This one is one that a lot of you guys are going to be passionate about and have comments on. This is on GameSpot. It says, the World Health Organization. Mac, were you going to talk about this later? Because this is a pretty big story. You were not. Okay. The Public Health Division of the United Nations has released its newest list of classified diseases, and gaming disorder is included. A draft of WHO being World Health Organization, International Classification of Diseases describes this as being characterized by a, quote, pattern of persistent or recurring gaming behavior, online or offline. I love that they specified. It can be online or it can be offline. It doesn't matter. If you play video games too much, you have a disease. The article goes on to say, the description goes on to say, that gaming disorders can include the following. 1, impaired control over gaming, e.g. onset, frequency, intensity, duration, termination, context. 2, increasing priority given to gaming to the extent that gaming takes precedent over other life interests and daily activities. And 3, continuation or escalation of gaming despite the occurrence of negative consequences. People suffering from the so-called gaming disorder run the risk of significant impairment to their personal, family, social, education, and occupational lives, according to the WHO. The description goes on to say that gaming disorder can be a continuous condition, or it can be an episodic or recurrent in nature. For it to be suggested that a person has a gaming disorder, they would display these behavior patterns for a year or longer. Thoughts, Mac?
Well, I am ever so slightly biased when it comes to mental disorders. I got to about the junior level of courses in psychology before I switched over to chemistry. Which is why it took so very long to complete university. But that being said, I have always been more skeptical. And okay, and brief aside, the DSM, no, DSM-5 aside, not important. What is important, Mr. Nice Guy, is that I'm already kind of feel like there is an over characterization, an over diseasification of things. My wording is terrible, but
You're okay.
there's an overabundance of that, and I think much to the detriment of our society and of mental health in general. I have been before sucked into games in a way that I would describe as unhealthy. Often this occurred around the time that I was suffering for other reasons, and games were a good escape.
Okay.
I like, for example, Mr. Nice Guy, that I spent some time trying to get into dentistry and was working towards that route. And there was a period in time wherein I realized after about a year of hands-on experience in dentistry that I realized that I could not conceivably continue a career path in that for my own mental well-being. And giving up on that was kind of a huge blow to me personally. And so I spent a lot of time playing video games, retreating into video games, even to what I would describe as probably what looked like a very unhealthy fashion. However, I came through it on the other side more ready to get back to it and refocus my life. In some ways, the context in which you do something makes a big difference to your overall health coming through the other side. If you treat something like this is an opportunity to forget about the other things that are going on around me and to recharge myself and then come back at this ready to do things, even if it's a, what are those? Even if it was recurring behavior, even if I did it at the detriment of some other things, which I totally did, and some of the negative consequences of stepping out blinking-eyed into the sun, or even maybe missing a meal or two, I feel like I could personally have checked off all the check marks on the list, and it wasn't because I was suffering from gaming disorder. It's because I was suffering from some deeply rooted depression, a depressive episode that was brought on by a huge change in my life. And back during the DSM-4, we would have called that grieving. It would have been grief. It would have been normal and natural. But once with the DSM-5, nope. Not going there. I said I wasn't going to go DSM-5, not going DSM-5. Point being is that I would have checked off all of those boxes, and I would have been characterized as gaming disorder when all it really was how I allowed my depression to manifest itself in a way that let me work through my pain, work through my issues, and come through on the other side better prepared to get back to things that were important in life. So that's my opinion. I can't summarize it in a sentence, unfortunately.
I think you said basically what I would have said. Not that I had the same experience as you, but you said it better than I could have said it, so I'm not going to add to it. I think that's perfect response. We'll move on, unless you have more to add.
No, I think I ranted enough.
All right, cool. I kind of want to read Galvatron's comment, though, because it's always cool to get other perspectives. In fact, do you want to read his comment, Mac?
Sure.
All right, go for it.
So the hot take, Elrin chimes in with, sounds like gaming addiction that's sadly real. You can be addicted to just about everything. But you said Galvatron.
You can read that one too. That's cool.
Gaming disorder is a scam. Yes, some people play too many games at the cost of their lives, but it's not a disease. It's a ploy to keep the medical community employed and for Big Pharma to come up with new and expensive experimental drugs. For me, I've been a gamer all my life, but that hasn't had a significant negative effect on the rest of my life, except for a slight dip in grades for a semester in college. But the most I've played for a game in one sitting was 5 hours, and have gone long stretches without gaming.
Yeah, and I've told you guys the story, actually, about how games helped my grades in college. I'm not going to tell it again, because I've told it many times on this podcast, but I think any hobby can be positive, any hobby can be negative. That's what we can kind of take from that. Cool. Well, we'll keep it moving. We'll do like one more news story, and then we'll move on to our next segment. This next one comes from Game Rant, and it's a rumor. There's a lot of cool rumors going on in the industry this week. It says Reddit user Das Versben has made a reputation for himself as a frequent leaker of video game industry news. While Das Versben has been incorrect with his leaks far more than he has been right, the fact that he accurately predicted the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles DLC for Injustice 2 does lend him some credibility more than other supposed leakers. It says his latest claims have to deal with the Nintendo Direct that's rumored for January 11th, which will apparently see the announcement of Grand Theft Auto 5 for the Nintendo Switch. It says he has a number of claims about the January Nintendo Direct, which is yet to be announced itself, but that's the most believable, the one about GTA 5. After all, Rockstar Games has already shown support for the Switch with the release of LA Noire, and the Switch should have the power to run GTA 5 without too much difficulty. Besides the announcement of a Grand Theft Auto 5 port, he also suggested that the Switch will receive a remastered port of Red Dead Redemption. While Switch fans may be disappointed that Red Dead Redemption 2 doesn't appear to be in the works for the handheld/home console hybrid, a port of the critically acclaimed first game may be a suitable stand-in. No real need for commentary on this one. Just wanted to throw that out there. If you guys have thoughts on it, let us know in the chat. I think that GTA 5 would probably decrease productivity in the world for a while if it was on handheld, because people would just not do anything else. But that's what we have for gaming news this week. Mac, I'll turn it over to you, buddy.
All right. Well, now that we've taken a look at what's going on around us in the gaming world, I want to take a quick look into the past. Now, in gaming history, we don't talk about all of the games that came out this last week in years past. Heavens no, that would take forever. I'd just be sitting here reading off titles. That would be it. But we do like to take a couple, look at them, and maybe talk about what we remember, or in some cases, talk and emphasize about the games that were particularly groundbreaking, or things on that matter. And so I have 3 for our consideration today. The first one, from the year 1990, released for the Game Boy, would be Dr. Mario. Now,
Fantastic.
Dr. Mario was not the first game of its kind, and it most certainly wasn't the last, the Dr. Mario style, but it's definitely kind of the most popular. When you see plenty of puzzle games with the falling blocks that you have to match to a color, you think, Dr. Mario mechanics. It is sort of where we look. Now, there have been variations on it. For example, what was it? Tetris Attack was a good one that was very much in the same sort of, in the same and similar styles. There have been remixes, changes to Dr. Mario, but everybody seems to remember Dr. Mario with great fondness. I even know some people who I would not characterize as gamers at all, and yet their primary, they love Dr. Mario.
Dude, nice girl and I have date nights. I have Dr. Mario loaded up on the Raspberry Pi.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll go down, we'll play it for hours and just have a blast. My wife is not a gamer. She's very casual, but loves it, to your point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dr. Mario, for many of us, has just this undeniable spot in our brains and in our minds, and they spend... And they just love that game. So Dr. Mario, for better or worse, many of the puzzle games you've seen owe their core mechanics to Dr. Mario. We see it all over the place. This next one, 1996, released for PC. It would be the original Diablo.
Ooh.
Diablo came out, if I got the date right, New Year's Day, 1996. Again, Diablo is so integral that we wind up calling things as Diablo likes. It is basically a genre of action, of real-time action RPG with an isometric top-down view, potions that you drink, life bars, health bars, multiplayer participation. I mean, there are whole. It's basically sort of a subgenre in and of itself at this point. Diablo. Now, I did not really get into Diablo when I was young. I think that my parents found the game art, the box art, to be a little off-putting, being that I come from a religious family. So Diablo was not a game that was really on the table for me. But many people who did not have the same sort of background found Diablo in the mid to late 90s and absolutely loved it. It spawned two very successful sequels in Diablo 2, and then of course Diablo 3. But yeah, so Diablo, it all started New Year's Eve, January 1996. And then the last one, Final Fantasy X, released in 2001 on the PS2. So here's what I'm going to say about Final Fantasy II. I did not like Final Fantasy II.
Wait,
I thought
was it 10 or 2?
Or sorry, 10.
Okay,
sorry,
cool,
Final Fantasy X. But there is Final Fantasy X too. Although Final Fantasy X is the only game in the series that got an actual direct sequel in the form of Final Fantasy X 2. Final Fantasy X just did not sit well with me. I found the story to be insanely convoluted, the payoff at the end of the story to be basically non-existent. It was just not my thing, Final Fantasy X. But a lot of people consider it to be among the greatest of the Final Fantasy games. And we'll just have to agree to disagree. But yeah, Final Fantasy X, unless you've got any specific feedback about Final Fantasy X, Mr. Nice Guy. Don't tell me you're one of those people who loved it.
I'll be honest, I'm one of those people who didn't play it, Mac. I've never been a Final Fantasy guy, dude. I would say of like mainstream gaming franchises that are kind of like almost household names, that's one that I just never got into. I have never beaten a Final Fantasy game. You look shocked and appalled.
No, I'm not shocked. I'm not appalled. I just, hey, different strokes for different folks, Mr. Nice Guy. Doesn't mean I love you any less. I'm not upset. I'm just disappointed.
I'm sorry, dude. I don't know. Tell me which one's the best one. I'll find a way to go back and play it.
It depends. Kind of depends on what you're looking for, Mr. Nice Guy.
We'll chat off stream. I know.
Yeah, we'll chat
Final
off
Fantasy
stream.
IX your favorite though? I think you said that on
Final
here.
Fantasy VIII is my childhood favorite, but I mean, Final Fantasy I is. I find myself playing Final Fantasy I more than anything else.
For the
Any
NES?
other Fantasies, yeah.
Oh, dude, that's a ROM download right there. That's easy. I could do that.
But we'll talk about it off stream.
Yeah, we'll talk off stream.
But yeah, but that's what I had for gaming history, Mr. Nice Guy.
Awesome. Well, guys, now it's time for a segment of the show called the Topic of the Week. Topic of the show, Topic of the Week, whatever you want to call it. We'll go with it. Where we talk about something that's relevant in gaming today, and we give our opinions, and we get your opinions, and we have a good time talking about it. That's what we do. So this week's story comes from our boys and girls at IGN. This is kind of a different one, Mac, where we're probably going to delve deep into the consequences of plagiarism, just to kind of give you a heads up on what we're going to talk about. I'll read the article. It says, Microsoft has pulled down a PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds advert from its social media channels after the creator of a fan concept complained about striking similarities to their work. Reddit user Maxter, no relation to Maction, had created a concept advert for the Xbox One version of PUBG that garnered tens of thousands of views. And if anyone can find a link, anyone who's watching live can find a link to this article real quick and hit the chat with it, so that everyone can know what I'm talking about, so you can see the similarities, then that would be greatly appreciated. It is on IGN though. So it goes on to say, Reddit user Maxter had created a concept advert for the Xbox One version of PUBG that garnered tens of thousands of views. Then noticed that Microsoft's social channels had posted an advert with near identical ideas. You can see both in the gallery below. Now, if you're listening after the fact, you can Google this, but I'll give you kind of a rundown. Basically, it's an image of an Xbox One with some grass coming out of it, right? It says the logo PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, and coming out of the grass on the Xbox One is a character that you play as in PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds. It's very specific. The one next to it is the same thing, but with the Xbox One X with a controller next to it, and the guy about to go loot a crate or something. They're very similar, there's no doubt. It goes on to say, seeing no credit offered, Maxter pointed out the similarities on Reddit, which caught the attention of Microsoft's Larry Major Nelson a day later. Hey guys, wrote Herb, which is Major Nelson. I wanted to let you know that this is being investigated. In the meantime, our official channels have pulled down the asset in question. I'll follow up with the OP user Maxter once I get more details. No update has followed from either Microsoft or Maxter since the post, but it's encouraging to see Microsoft acknowledging and acting on fan complaints so quickly. Since Maxter's concept worked, Battlegrounds has arrived on Xbox One, blah, 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 blah. So, Mac, here's my thing. We have companies like Nintendo, right, who will not let people post gameplay of their games on the internet, right? And they use
without you without you agreeing to specific monetary compensation terms first.
That's exactly right. Additionally, Nintendo does not acknowledge the existence of fan-made projects. And I shouldn't phrase it like that. They acknowledge their existence, but they promptly have them taken down. They say, it's using our intellectual property, it's using our idea to create something for yourself, even if it's not for profit. My point is, Mac, there's strict levels of accountability and consequence when people in the gaming community do things like this. Should there be equally strict consequences when a gaming company steals the idea, steals the artwork or the premise created by a random guy on Reddit? What do you think, man?
Tracing the origin of an idea is always difficult. People can come up with ideas independently without any interaction or interface between the two. It can happen, it does happen, and yeah, there's always going to be that question about, did this come because of what I said, what I did, what I posted? But regardless of which direction it's going, yeah, there needs to be accountability. There needs to be, respect shown for the person who comes up with an idea. Now, I'm going to say that when it comes to plagiarism, Mr. Nice Guy, the thing that I think is particularly interesting is not so much plagiarism on this way, and I'm not going to take us this way, but I just want to throw it out there, and maybe we talk about it sometime later. But fan fiction and fan games as a source of plagiarism. But just we'll put a pin in that for later. But yeah, so I think there does need to be responsibility taken, and I think in any case it's always going to be unfortunate because there's always going to be a bigger power difference between the two parties. So if I plagiarize something from Microsoft or from any given company, there is going to be a power difference between us.
Sure.
They can issue, and they've got the funds to do a cease and desist and even take something to court if needs be. Myself, as just a lowly person who doesn't have all those resources, I will never be able to bring to bear the same tools. The responsibility should be equally shared, but I think the inherent difference in power between the two groups is going to make it so that there is little or no accountability on the side of the company against the side of the individual.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And ultimately, to be completely fair in this story, the guy who created the fan art does not own the rights to this game, right? Mm-hmm. So technically, he can do whatever he wants as far as photo editing, but he doesn't own the rights to that artwork because he used images that were not his. Now, does that make it okay that Microsoft potentially, allegedly, stole his images and stole his concept? No, it doesn't make it okay. And I believe that that's why they were taken down, and that's why it's being investigated. But if you're a fan, you cannot make something using artwork that's not yours and expect there to be consequences for the gaming company. You just can't. I mean, if Microsoft had chosen to completely ignore this guy and just say, hey, we're just not even going to acknowledge that this guy exists and acknowledge that he made this before we did, they could have done it and it would have just boiled over. So, but short answer to my question, yes, there should be consequences. The only issue is that, like you said, there's not really a governing body that can say, hey, you stole this idea from some random guy on the internet, Microsoft. You have to pay, $10 million now. That's just not ever going to happen. But there should be something that punishes them for that. So anyway, that's my thoughts on it. Do you have anything else you want to say, Mac, on that issue?
No, aside from just that I think it's kind of nice of Microsoft to pull that stuff.
Yeah, I agree, and we'll see what happens. I'm curious. I'm going to follow up with this story and see what the outcome is. But Mac, that is our topic of the week, and I'll give it back to you, buddy.
Awesome. Well, it so happens that now we find ourselves at the point in the show where we take a look at a crowdfunding project, where we post it in the chat for those of you who are live here with us to go over it. We talk about some of the virtues, some of the vices between Mr. Nice Guy and myself, and then at the end we issue our decision, our determination, whether we think this project is worth our time and our money, it should be kickstarted. Or if we feel like this is not worth it and we think it should be kicked out of here, and we encourage you, those of you who are here live, as well as those of you who are listening to us after the fact, to say whether you think it should be kicked or kick-started, and we are tallying your results from here. Well, this one happens to be a game called Last Warrior. It is a VR game, a fantasy adventure VR game designed for your smartphone and in use with a Google Cardboard or whatever the iOS equivalent is of one of those virtual reality headsets and a controller. So this is a little bit different from what I would normally throw out there. I know I have a tendency to look at the retro styled games a lot. But this one definitely caught my eye. It's got a pretty good atmosphere. The gameplay, well, we'll get to that. But what these guys are working to create is they're working to create a reasonably well-featured VR app game that you'll be able to download onto your smartphone, play, and then and have a somewhat medium-length game with a few chapters to it. I believe they say in their stretch goals that they'll mostly be doing things like adding languages and such, but once they hit a certain point, they'll start focusing on things like adding more chapters, more interactive puzzles, and things to really improve the game. So that being said, they're aiming for $4,500, give or take. It's Kickstarter already converted all the currencies into US dollars, by the by, for me. And your buy-in price is about $6 for the release of the game, which they're hoping to have released in April 2018. Now, I'm just going to throw out there that my general feel on things is that if they say it's going to be April, if they say it's going to be spring of a specific year, you should usually expect it to be fall of that same year, or the next, the opposite season in line, and that way you won't be disappointed when it's eventually delayed and you get it, then. So yeah, $6 buy-in price for the delivery. That makes me think that it'll probably be probably something like maybe $7 or so when the game's available for Android and iOS. I will say that one of the things that I really, really like about it is that it is a game that is being designed for both Android and iOS.
That's good.
I dislike it when I'm like, ooh, cool, a smartphone game, and it's like iOS. Oh,
why do you
there's a stretch goal for Android.
Why do you dislike that when that happens?
Well, because I'm
messing with you, dude.
Use Android, Mr. Nice Guy. You should know this.
But here's the thing, man. Eventually you think you'd say, oh, wow, all these games that I want to play are coming out on iOS and not on Android. So maybe it's time. Okay, I'm going to stop because Mac looks like
I'm glaring at him.
He looks like he's about to murder me. No, they're both good phones. Both good platforms, I should say. Well, cool. My thoughts on it, Mac, unless you had more.
No, Mr. Nice Guy, give me your thoughts.
It looks like trash. The game looks like trash to me. I'm just being honest. It doesn't look like a game that I'd be interested in. It reminds me of when I would do my homework at the last minute in high school, and how I would just throw something together. It's a passable effort, but no one's gonna give me money to do their project. It just doesn't look that good to me, man. The graphics don't look good. The Kickstarter doesn't look like it's that well put together, and I feel like they're underestimating how much it will cost to make the game by only asking for $4,500. I think that eventually they're gonna, if they get funded, they're gonna end up asking for more and delaying. Also, I don't think that, like you said, if it ends up being $7, why would I pay $6 now when I could just pay $1 more later when it actually comes out and be guaranteed to get it, because at that point it would be released. So unless I was like this kid's mom or dad, I'm not going to give them money. It doesn't make sense to me.
All reasonable points. I have to admit, Mr. Nice Guy, I feel like when I look at the graphics and I think, this is going to be a VR, a VR cell phone game or a game that'll run on your cell phone, I don't feel like we've got games with that much better graphics running on our cell phones for this. Do we have Skyrim on cell phones yet?
Not yet, but give it 2 years, Mac.
Yep, give it a couple of years, and it'll be breaking news, Mr. Nice Guy, won't it?
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I actually really kind of like this, and good news, I've got that one big rule.
What is it?
It's that there's got to be a playable demo. And there is a playable demo for iOS as well as Android. So if you guys are at all interested in trying it out, you can grab the demo, give it a shot. If you like it, great. If not, that's great too. Myself, I think I'm going to say kickstart it. While I don't think you're right, the Kickstarter isn't especially well put together, but I don't need somebody to be good at making a compelling Kickstarter if I can see that they can actually do the work. So for my part, I'm going to venture $6 on it and go from there. I think it's a reasonable effort, and I want to see where it goes from here.
All right, and I think y'all know what my vote is. My vote is to kick this to the curb, not once, not twice, but 3 times, because this game looks terrible, and I don't hope that they fail. I want people to succeed. I want people to prove me wrong, but it just isn't something that appeals to me, and I don't see it appealing to a big audience. I don't really see or hear about a lot of virtual reality games that are blowing up, period, let alone a VR game on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember playing the Google Cardboard on Mac's phone one time, and it was cool, but it wasn't something that I was going to play over and over and over again, the game that we played. I think it was like a shooter.
It was probably Quake.
No, it was a game where we were like shooting stuff out of the sky. It was like an on-rails shooter. I think I was like inside a body and like shooting diseases or something. Yes,
it was.
Yeah, it was fun, but it wasn't something that I'd play over and over again for hours on end. It was a cool bite-sized experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say kick it, and you guys can vote in the chat, I guess. Right, Mac?
Well, most everybody has weighed in. I am the sole voice of kickstarting it. So those of you who are listening to us after the fact, please yell on your bus or your commute, kickstart, so that Mac has some company. But that's what we had for our crowdfunding section. Kick or kickstart. Mr. Nice Guy, over to you, sir.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time for the main event. It's time for my favorite segment of the show, also known as the Dummy of the Week. A segment of the show where we talk about someone who did something stupid, idiotic, or downright dumb. And usually, Mac, I make light of it, but this week's story is not funny at all. It's actually very sad and serious. So I want to make it clear this is not something that I'm going to be cracking jokes about, but it was such a relevant news story that I wanted to share it. And I feel like we would be remiss if we did not discuss this on a gaming podcast. This is all over the internet. You can read about it. This particular article is on The Guardian. It says, arrest made in case of Kansas man shot dead by police after hoax call. Now, I am going to start this off by summarizing what happened, and then I'll read the actual article. Mac, are you familiar with this story at all?
No.
If not, okay. So here's what went down, you guys. To summarize, there were some people who were playing Call of Duty online recently, and they were in what's called a wager match, where basically whoever wins the match wins something or gets some esports points or whatever they were doing, game battles or whatever it was. So one player won, obviously, and there was some trash talking that was going on. There were some other people spectating, and I believe this may have been streamed on Twitch. One of the people spectating said, hey, I can get the address of the guy who beat you, and I may be getting it wrong. It may have been the guy who lost that they got his address. Regardless, an address ended up getting posted on Twitter. For a Kansas address, they said, this is the guy you were playing against, and somebody swatted that address. Now, here's what ended up happening. The police, and this is sad, this is serious. The police ended up bursting into this home. Well, let me rephrase that. They knocked. A gentleman came to the door and opened the door, and the police shot him, and he died. And it turns out that the guy who was shot and killed was just some random guy in Kansas who had nothing to do with any of this and doesn't even play video games. So a random address was posted. So with that as a backdrop, here is the rest of the article, or the article that summarizes what happened after the fact. It says, a law enforcement official said police in Los Angeles had arrested a man they suspect made a hoax phone call, possibly linked to an argument over an online game that resulted in a fatal police shooting in Kansas. The official said 25-year-old Tyler Barris was arrested on Friday, but had no information on charges. The official was not authorized to discuss the investigation publicly and spoke on condition of anonymity. Barris was convicted in 2016 on 2 counts of making a false bomb report to a TV station in California. Authorities have not released the name of the man who was killed on Thursday in Wichita, but relatives identified him as 28-year-old Andrew Finch. The FBI is also investigating. Speaking on Friday, Wichita Deputy Police Chief Troy Livingston did not mention reports that an argument over online gaming was at the heart of the prank, although he said investigators had made good progress tracking online leads. Livingston said the hoax call was a case of swatting, in which a person makes up a false report to get a SWAT team to descend on an address. Quote, due to the actions of a prankster, we have an innocent victim, he said. Police played audio of the call to 911. A man said his father had been shot in the head. He said he was holding his mother and a sibling at gunpoint. The caller, speaking with relative calm, said he poured gasoline inside the home and, quote, I might just set it on fire. To summarize, it goes on to say several SWAT team members got to his house. And when a man came to the door, it says police told him to put his hands up and move slowly. Livingston said the man moved a hand toward the area of his waistband, a common place where guns are concealed. An officer, fearing the man was reaching for a gun, fired a single shot. Finch died a few minutes later at a hospital. Livingston said he was unarmed. The officer who fired, a 7-year veteran of the department, is on paid leave pending an investigation. Police also released a brief video of body cam footage from another officer. It was difficult to clearly see what happened. It goes on and people say, there's a quote saying what gives them the right to open fire from the mom. She says, the cop murdered my son over a false report in the first place. Here's what needs to happen, guys. We need to stop doing this. And when I say we, I mean people who are doing this type of thing. This is absolutely crazy. This is so sad. You guys, the guy, in this case, the guy who was killed doesn't even play video games, knew nothing about this, and we lost a person who was an innocent person due to some nonsense and some shenanigans. And it makes us look stupid as gamers. That's all I really have to say about it. Mac, if you want to chime in, you can. If you don't want to touch it, you don't have to. But I'll give you a chance if you want to say anything.
I think you said it all.
Let's be better, you guys. Let's stop doing this. The world is bad enough with it's a great place. The world is great. But there's enough bad things going on in the world with people trying to be malicious towards others without involving the innocent and having them have to deal with this type of thing. The dummy of the week is the guy who did the swatting. And that's that segment. Next week, we'll be back to making fun of people. But this week, I wanted to share something serious. Mac, I'll give it back to you, buddy.
All right. Well, the last thing that we like to talk about in a structured fashion happens to be our segment on Legalese.
Legalese?
Where we talk about some interesting legal proceedings that may impact the world of games, already have, or sometimes are just really too fun to pass up. And this one happens to be one of that last category. So in 2000, so Mr. Nice Guy, do you know how Han Solo got the Millennium Falcon?
Yeah, he paid for it, right?
Nope. Well, I mean, I guess kind of. He won it.
Yeah.
He won it in a card game.
Yeah.
You know the name of the card game?
No, but it was at the cantina place, right?
I think it was at some cantina, but they don't actually, Lando Calrissian just mentions it, and of course, Han Solo's like, I won it from you fair and square. Now, in the novelization of Empire Strikes Back, they go into more detail about it, and they actually name the game as Sabacc, Sabacc. I think it's supposed to be said Sabacc. That's my guess. Well, what's interesting is that in 2015, some people actually made a mobile game, a mobile video game. So for iOS and I think this one's just iOS called Sabacc. They made it. They put it up in 2015. Right around the time that LucasArts, or at least that Disney, announced that they were going to be making a Han Solo origin movie. And yeah, it has been operating. This game has been in operation for a while now. But recently, Lucasfilm, or that particular branch of Disney, has actually asked for this game and its trademark to be revoked, to be shut down on account of the fact that it's their IP. Now they're on solid grounds because of course they have they have it, of course, from they have the previous name in their already copyrighted works, so they've got a copyright on the ideas presented and such. But apparently, if I'm reading the infringement case here, that they did not currently have a trademark already on Sabacc. They have a Sabacc mark that was trademarked, but they're mostly issuing this on the subject of violating, like leeching off of it's called goodwill in legal terms, but it's basically riding the coattails of a more popular or of the reputation of another entity. So anyway, they're being sued right now, and so they're going to lose. Just no doubt about it. This company that has made Sabacc and made this game, it's going to lose. The game's going to be shut down, and things will go on, and we will have our young Han Solo movie. But what's funny about it to me, and maybe it's a function of, things were a little bit difficult in the transition time when Disney was taking over the IP. It took them some time to get serious about stuff. What I find hilarious is that, number one, they were able to get the trademark for Sabacc for the game, and two, that it was allowed to go so long with the without being taken issue from Disney.
Well, they're not Nintendo.
On behalf of the stores. Now, it is noteworthy that this is absolutely it is Sabacc, like from Star Wars, and the semblance is undeniable. I'm amused that it's taken this long. I am amused that it's gotten this far. I would have expected this to be struck down in the very early stages, but oh well.
Interesting stuff. We'll see what happens on this one.
Oh yeah, well I'm calling it right now. They're gonna lose, but it is
guaranteed.
But yeah, I'm just really genuinely surprised that it got this far down the line. Basically, is where I think the real humor of this story is. With that, that's all that I had for our segment on Legalese. Mr. Nice Guy, I think, if it's all right with you, I have had some great things that I've seen and great games that I've played over the past few days that I would love to share.
Let's do it.
Okay, so I want to start by sharing some games that I've been playing lately. I have, of course, packed around my my NES, and I had perhaps the greatest Christmas gift ever in that my parents, my dad agreed to try playing Mega Man.
No way.
No, I kid you not. It was fantastic. I mean, he died repeatedly, and I just breezed through everything because I am an old hand at Mega Man. But it meant a lot to me that he would try, you know?
Yeah.
That he would give it a shot. And of course, Mega Man is a terrible game to start him on. But he had talked to me about that Thanksgiving Mega Man long marathon stream that I did over Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And Dad was like, well, I should really give Mega Man a shot one of these days. And I said, okay, you got it. So we did that. And then not 3 hours later, my mom, she played Thomas Was Alone.
No way.
On my tablet. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I only had it on my tablet at the time, but she got through like the first 12, 13 levels before she was like, okay, I think the levels are just getting a touch too hard for me, and she passed it over to me. And then, as I continued playing, she sat next to me watching the game and was starting to give advice, and, you know, just that she was invested. I mean, it was the greatest Christmas present you could ever ask for when your family has been so mostly disinterested in games in general. To have them take an interest, it was a fantastic moment. It was absolutely the highlight of my year.
That's awesome.
So it was great. Additionally, one other game that I played recently is there's a Russian chap. I happened to meet him on Twitch in somebody else's live stream in Endy SWE. He's a speedrunner of some renown. And as a sort of Christmas thing, people were like giving away subscriptions to his channel, subs to his channel. And so someone gave one to me, and I was like, okay, I can give one to somebody else. And I picked out this person, this Achpiles, his name, ACHPILE. And he was very grateful that he had actually made a couple of games on Steam. So he gave me a key to the two games that he put on Steam. And the second of the two, Dispersio, is maddening. And it's right there on the cusp, Mr. Nice Guy. I beat it after quite a bit of time trying. It took me about 4 hours to beat it.
Woo!
But it was 79 cents on Steam. So not too shabby for 4 hours of entertainment. And it was one of those things like I Want to Be the Guy, if you've played that game before.
I haven't played that one.
Okay. Well, for anybody who might like it, that's an enjoyable one to give a shot. So yeah, that's what I've been playing. What about you, Mr. Nice Guy?
Nice. Now, just so you guys know, this is a segment of the show where you guys also in the chat tell us what you have been watching and playing, because we're always looking for nerdy stuff to check out. So please let us know in the chat stuff you've been watching and playing. So Mac, I have a lot this week, man. I saw the new Star Wars with my brother when he was here. Have you seen it, Mac?
I have.
Okay, we're not going to talk about spoilers on here, but 1 to 10, scale of 1 to 10, what'd you think, man?
7.
Okay. See,
there were things I really liked. I felt like the movie suffered from bad pacing.
Okay.
I felt like the first and second acts really drug on, and the third act was really good. But in the middle entry in a sequel, I kind of expect it to have a slow first couple of minutes, and then the rest of the first acts, second acts, and third acts be really tight. Because you've already done, no trilogy is meant to be viewed independently. It's meant to be viewed within the context of the other two. Yeah. So I feel like your first one, you give the setup. Your second one, you shouldn't need to do setup. So it should be tight. It should be solid, and everybody should, the storylines should be really, really fast. If anything, and then in the third movie, your last third should be a little bit slower because you're wrapping things up.
Sure.
There's time, but really the central, the first, second, and third acts of the middle movie of a trilogy should be tighter than this was. I have no real problems. I have no problems with any of the characters. I have no real problems with the storylines. There are some places where I thought certain ideas could have been expressed better, but at the end of the day, I'm like, I've got no problem with this movie. It just needed to be tighter. It needed to be faster. It needed to be punchier. We didn't need this amount of long, drawn-up setup for this. We already know the characters and love them. Let's get on with it.
Right. We know who Luke Skywalker is. And I feel like I hate, and this is not really a spoiler. Maybe it's a minor spoiler. I hate movies where there's a young person who wants to be trained in the ways of whatever. And they go to the old guy or girl and they say, will you train me? And they say, I don't train people anymore. And then they spend 20 to 25 minutes convincing them to train them. It's like, come on, you know you're going to give in and train them. Just show her how to use the Force, Luke. Don't waste 25 minutes of the movie acting like you're too cool for school. Come on, dude. That's such a cliche in movies, and I'm tired of it. I'm trying to think of the other example where that happened. I think it was a Marvel movie. Oh, it was like in X-Men when they're like, you got to go back in time and convince us to, in Days of Future Past, you got to go back in time and convince me to help you. And they go to him and he's like, I'm not going to help. And they spend the whole movie getting him to help him. And I just hate that in movies. So anyway, saw Star Wars. Been watching, well, let's talk about what I've been playing. I've been playing Super Mario Odyssey. Mac, that game is fan-freaking-tastic. I bought it weeks ago, but I saved it for Christmas, and that game, it's one of the best Mario games that I have ever played. It's absolutely amazing. So much to do, so many beautiful landscapes, just such a good game. Also, I had a similar experience as you. I had always heard rumors that my dad, at one point, who is not a gamer, stayed up all night playing Pac-Man back in the day. And so since I have the Retro Pi, I said, Dad, you want to try this Miss Pac-Man game? And he played it for quite a bit of time. So that was a good Christmas present for me as well, watching my dad, who does not like video games, play video games for a while. What else have I been playing? Player Unknown Battlegrounds. Been really going hard with that on Xbox One. And played some Halo 3 just to get some old school gaming in. And what else have I been watching? I totally forgot. Oh, here's the one thing that I gotta recommend to everybody who likes comedy. Dave Chappelle came out with 2 specials earlier this year, and they were fantastic. They're on Netflix. Well, guess what? On New Year's Eve, he came out with 2 more specials, you guys. That's 4 specials in a year. That's unprecedented. I watched the first one last night. It was like the Van Gogh of comedy. Like, there are some things in nerd media and in media in general that just transcend the art form that they are a part of. I would say The Last of Us is one example. It's a game that transcends games, right? It's art. I would say, I can't think of too many examples, but I would say this Chappelle Show special, such a thing of beauty, and I would recommend that everybody watch it. At least the first one. I'm watching the second one tonight. And Mac, I'm going to wrap up on that. A lot of people in the chat have been telling us what they've been watching and playing. Do you want to read some of those, or do you want me to read those?
Yeah, sure. I'll read them, but I'll skim over them real quick as we're running pretty late.
Yeah, that's cool.
So if we don't read yours, it's not because we don't love you. So we've got some Odyssey, people watching Star Trek Discovery, and replaying Spyro 2. Yay for the classics. Some Destiny 2, some Assassin's Creed Origins, Nier Automata, and Bloodborne. Pazzy recommends the Kevin Hart's autobiography as being particularly good. And another vote for 7 out of 10 from Last Jedi. I am exonerated. So yeah, thanks so much for sharing what you guys have been watching and what you've been playing. Thank you for joining us for 2 Nerds in a Pod, the nerdiest podcast in the known universe. And yeah, thanks for sticking with us, even in spite of the holiday break.
We'll see you guys next week. Same bat place, same bat time, same bat rhymes. Keep it nerdy. Deuces.